Hello, everybody. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. I've been taking a break due to just needing to take a break and have some personal time. So, which gave me time to think. And before I go any further, let me give uh my disclaimer here. Okay. In in these classes and these podcasts, we do not recognize any orientations, sexually or otherwise, religious content, though it may be a comparison in topic, but it's not the basis. And we do not talk about politically charged subjects or anything pertaining to that. We do not hold a biased view on anything. And if you do visit by chance or join us, if you are told and warned and persist on those topics to make it biased and hijack the conversation, you will be reminded to not. And if you continue, you will be promptly kicked out of the chat and locked out. But we still wish you to have a good day. Now, but that being said, I've taken a couple of weeks off, and I was doing some thinking about things on what would be a good topic today. And one I don't think gets talked about enough is boundaries. Now, what do I mean about boundaries? Okay. What is the basic definition about boundaries? What are boundaries? How do they apply to us as people and to other people? And what are they? Well, boundaries, as we know, to give a very basic understanding, is it's like a fence in a yard to land, to farmland, to keep things separate, right? Okay. That is a boundary, the land boundary, but also there are boundaries we have with ourselves as well. I'm going to start with the first one is boundaries. What, how, and who do they apply? And along with this, I'm going to talk about how far people have distorted what boundaries are. Okay. Boundaries, in a simple word, is no. Is I will not permit, I will not allow, I do not want to, I will not allow someone to. And this is not something I think should be discussed, broached, or continued. Okay. That means that when someone goes, I'm not comfortable with this topic, or I'm not comfortable discussing this, that person is saying, I'm not comfortable with this topic. I do not wish to discuss it any further. However, though, where that is negated is if the person brings it up They have allowed the topic to be discussed. But when they go, I don't want to talk about this anymore, that's a double standard. It's only on your terms, which means you're also dictating somebody else's boundaries. That's not appropriate. You can't have it both ways. You bring it up, you're willing to talk about it. Okay. But yes, when things get too heated on that, it can be said, look, this is getting too heated now. I think it best we step away from this and we come back and discuss it at a different time. That is acceptable. But don't say, I don't want to anymore because it has gotten too uncomfortable for you. But you invited the conversation by mentioning it. And then when topics are said that you're not comfortable with, but when you open the door, you have in turn opened your own boundaries up to be. So this goes along with our own personal boundaries with ourselves. You can't have it both ways. You are or you're not. You will or you won't. It's not at one's own personal discretion. You are permitting or allowing. Now, personal boundaries are ones we set with ourselves. And to set a time limit for ourselves or not allow ourselves to continue doing something. If we have a bad habit, we go, I am not going to do this and I'm going to work to not do this. I'm going to stop doing this habit, i.e., drinking, drugs, having too much intercourse with people, going out too much, spending too much money, all these unhealthy things, okay, that need to be addressed and stopped. And discipline needs to be practiced because the consequences from that are costing you. I'm going to stop there and let that sink in for a minute. Now, how many of you and us have allowed that to be distorted and only to be because it's convenient? And the way things are today in social media, people will post and then get upset over it. You brought it up, didn't you? So you've opened up and allowed comments. So your boundaries have been negated, unless short of personal attacks, which that in itself as a boundary should not be crossed. And a good one that goes along with this is free speech. Okay? Free speech, you can say whatever you want as long as it doesn't attack. Okay? As long as it's non-threatening. Okay? The boundary with that is one shall not attack. Now, the freedom to speak may offend others. People may not agree, and that's fine. That's one's right to speak, to say. And the one speaking should keep in mind. And the one hearing should also remember that when one is speaking freely, there may be something said that you may not agree with, but also remember it is not a personal attack towards you. And that's where a double standard goes. Oh, you said something I don't agree with, and so I am offended by this, and you have personally attacked me. No, you showed up. You put yourself there. You have no reason to complain about what's being said unless your motive is to cause conflict. Then you have crossed a boundary. Which you have no right to do. You put yourself there by your own choice. It's fine to have a debate. It's fine to have an open discussion. But do not blame others for how you feel and how you react. That's totally up to you, which is another boundary. Your response is your choice, the boundary you do not set with yourself. Someone says, you made me feel this way. No, incorrect. You are allowing, which means you have not set a personal boundary with yourself in reacting. No one's responsible for how you act and how you react and how and what you say and when. That also is a boundary. It's not a double standard. You don't get to say something and then cut somebody off. That's an attempted control. That infringes upon another person's boundary. So that's an example. People are conveniently using that excuse to set terms only to their liking. You can't have it both ways. So that is a boundary. And I know this is you're going, well, how does all this play together? Well, there are personal boundaries, as I said, what we will allow ourselves to do and not do. That is a personal boundary within ourselves. Personal boundaries also can be what you will not allow somebody else to do to you, with you, say to you. And that goes both ways. It's also a matter of respect and consideration and also empathy. But again, that is not a double standard. And one is responsible to that. And you are also accountable to that if you play the double standard. You cannot cry victim. You do not have that right to dictate, because it makes you uncomfortable. If it makes you uncomfortable, don't do it. Well, I feel so guilty over it. Well, you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Now, should you? But this person did that. What does that have to do with you? You allowed it by being there. You gave permission by starting it, also by taking part. Now, a discussion can be had civilly and with respect, and keeping the other person's boundaries in mind. This goes along with action. You have by taking part, have given permission to a point. And you can say no, which is a boundary. I do not approve. Same thing with that conversation. Same thing with a handshake, or if you're not comfortable with somebody hugging you, tell them, I'm not comfortable with a hug. Could you not? But I am okay with a handshake. You can't have it both ways. Say up front after it's done, I know you weren't aware, but I'm telling you from here on out, I would appreciate only a handshake, or a touch on my shoulder is fine. I am okay with that. I'm good with that. That's fair. And if that other person doesn't respect that, then remind. I've already mentioned, please don't. And if that person approaches you again, you can always put your hand up and say, please don't. I'm not comfortable with that. And if they persist, you can say, I'm sorry. I'm going to excuse myself from this. And you can walk away. You've set a boundary, you've set a limit. But also, don't let your own personal thoughts of what you may construe or misconstrue as a act. No, That's your own personal stuff. That has nothing to do with that person. Just because they may be a specific type of person, do not do that. That's being judgmental. That's your own personal stuff, which means you should set a boundary with yourself saying, not everybody is that. I am being judgmental. I am prejudging. You do not have the right to do that. We all do prejudge. We all do judge. But however, do not allow a fear of influence to deny you that. Because honestly, that's the exception if somebody has ill intent. It's not the rule. And I did go off on a little left field there, but it goes with the whole thing of boundaries. Boundaries are limits to be set. There is respect with boundaries. There is consideration for yourself and for the other person. It's valid. It's reasonable. It's realistic. But it can be made to harm or it can be made to help. Now that I've gone on my little tangent there, boundaries, as I've said, in a word, is no. And for example, when someone is having a conversation and have said, I've already said, I will not talk about this any further. Don't push. Don't find a way to manipulate the conversation to keep it going for your own comfort. The other person has said, I'm going to no longer discuss this. When it has already been said, I'm not going to discuss this anymore because I am not capable of this. I cannot help you here. Or this is out of my bounds. I am not comfortable with. Do not push for your own satisfaction and own curiosities. That is a you problem. Don't make it the other person's. If you push, you're infringing upon that other person's boundaries. They have stated, I am not comfortable with talking about or going further with this. They have stated. So it is up to you to find the information or to find what you need to know through your own means. That is also part of growth of, as I've mentioned in a class, of independently thinking. And this is where one will seek information constantly for the own sake of seeking information, but yet they are not saying, no, I need to stop this and I need to address really why I'm doing this. Why am I constantly seeking this approval when I'm not getting the answer I need or want. See, persisting is a want. And when people are not willing to enable that want, that's up to you to accept that. That is up to you to have to respect that boundary. And I'm aware that there are people in the autistic world, the neurodivergent world, people that have ADHD, and people that have developmental disabilities may have a harder time understanding that. But remember, we all are learning to live in the world outside of us, not make the world live in our world. So we have to learn to adapt to that. For example, when one goes to a job, you can explain that to your supervisor, hey, I have this, and it will sometimes make it difficult for me to understand. But from there, it is up to you to ask, could you elaborate on that, or for you to ask questions to understand it, but don't keep persisting either, just for the sake of you want that person to yield to the way you want to be spoken to. Okay. If it's not disrespectful, no harm, no foul. You're trying to dictate the terms. You are no position. You're in no position to dictate the terms. It's up to you to learn how, by asking questions and by also accepting that not everybody's going to speak the way you want. That's a you, not them. So, as we say in my generation, deal with it. You have to accept it the way it is. I know to some that may sound harsh. That might sound cold. That might sound unfair, unconsiderate, non compassionate. But is it compassion? Also helping the person, but not enabling the person? Because when you enable, you are being disrespectful. You are also not living within limits and boundaries. Boundaries are very important, but they can also be misused. They can also be used as manipulation. Now, I don't know if what I'm saying here is making sense. I'm trying to stay on topic here. I'm trying to stay with it so there's a clear understanding. But boundaries are not to be used as a weapon. They are a standard. They are a expectation. When we say no, we expect others to respect that. And the standard is with ourselves. It is a standard of expectation. It's not a controlling. Get that through your heads. It's not to infringe. No. It is to set an expectation. And like I was saying, if you bring it up, you have opened yourself up to that and expect reprisal. Expect things to be said and don't be offended and butthurt because somebody said something you didn't agree with, and don't get your little feelings all up in a tither and tizzy because something was said you didn't like. You allowed that, so you can't pull the standard of boundaries. Don't play that game. As a person on YouTube says, do better. Mind your own business. I'm not going to say his name because that's up to him to say, and it's only brought up as clips. But he has a point in that don't set yourself up to be the victim. That's infringing upon somebody else's boundaries. And frankly, you're doing it just for attention. You haven't grown up. You haven't accepted reality for what it is. Reality is what it is. It's not what you make it, unless you're delusional. Then that's a whole different topic. But boundaries are to keep that level of respect, to keep that confidence, that respect will be upheld. It is saying, consider my position on this. Consider how I feel about this. And don't say something just to piss the other person off. And that's legal to say on Facebook, on YouTube, okay? So and there are things I say on here that might offend people, but I have yet to insult anybody. I haven't infringed upon anybody's boundaries. For example, and that's just an example. I say what is honest. I say what is truthful. Not my truth, a truth, the truth, reality. But I also keep in mind a boundary to not directly attack a person. I directly attack the situation. And I use it as an example. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's not my problem. That's you, not me. But Tal, you hurt my feelings. Do I care? Do I know you? No. But I do care to tell you what you need to know to become better. It's up to you to like what you hear or not, to hear what you need to hear or not, to grow or not grow. Those are your choices. I have not overstepped any boundaries, though I could very easily. And there's really not a lot you could do about it. Let that sink in for a minute. I could say what I truly think and offend a whole lot of people and actually step on people's toes. Would it be with respect? Yes. Would it be valid? Probably. Would it be reasonable? Yes. Would it be realistic? Yes. But however, in this presentation today, it's to speak about boundaries. It's to be able to tell ourselves yes or no, to limit, to stop, to change your direction, to change your thought, to change your action, to change a belief, to become better than you were yesterday, and to become better than you are tomorrow, and to fulfill that for yourself. Now, tomorrow can mean day after today, or it can mean in the future. There's a saying, don't keep your mind on the present, but don't let the future affect today. That means keep in mind what you have to do. Keep in mind what may be coming. Oh, no, do not don't allow the thoughts of the future be at the expense of today. So boundaries are not conditional. They're not at the leisure of conditions. They're not at one's self-perverted thought to be used as a manipulation. They are to set an expectation and a standard of expectation. So when someone says, no, I don't want to discuss this right now, go with that. If someone says, could you please stop touching me like that? Stop. But also if the person says, would you stop touching me like that? Did you ask in the beginning and you just became uncomfortable of your choices? Or is that person legitimately touching you and addressing in a way that is truly uncomfortable? Does it infringe upon you in a way that may cause harm, real harm, actual, true harm? By what they're saying, by how they're acting, what games they may be playing, But then, and there also, you can leave. You can separate yourself from the situation. That is a boundary with yourself. No one is responsible for your boundaries except for you. No one else is responsible for your choices. That still, no one has the right to infringe upon that. If you don't like it, you can leave. That's a fact. But don't complain because you put yourself there either. In practices one may do, and the people they may hang out with, knowing good and well they are not healthy for you, and yet you still persist, you still continue. You have not set a boundary for yourself or for them, because you are allowing it by being there and not saying, I don't like doing this, I don't want to anymore. If you say that and you leave, you have set a boundary with you and those people. You have that right. But they're not responsible for your actions. You are. They're not responsible for your choices. You are. You chose to involve yourself in those actions, in those practices, in those beliefs. You chose that. They didn't make those choices for you. You allowed yourself to be manipulated by not saying, no, I don't agree with this. I don't believe that, which you can question. Rightfully so. But don't make it to where it's only convenient for you. Don't cry victim after things go down by what you wear, by what you say. That's on you. You didn't set a boundary with yourself, and you didn't understand, or you failed to understand and comprehend and act accordingly. And don't say, oh, I'm upset at people because of the way they're addressing me and the way they're looking at me because of what I'm dressing. That's on you. You didn't set a boundary with yourself. Or people don't want to be around me because of the way I act. Well, then maybe you say, hey, I'm trying to work on this, but also consider how other people may view your actions. But that doesn't give you an excuse to not be there either. That boundary is with yourself. That understanding of how people may see you. And if it's ignorance, then make it clear. But also, sometimes having to adapt to a situation is reasonable, within reason. Now, we cannot do something because we're uncomfortable, because we don't know how, we haven't experienced it. Give yourself that exposure. Allowing all these other challenges one has to dictate their actions and their life. They haven't set a boundary for themselves. They haven't set a limit. They haven't said, I need to do this for myself. They're allowing these other things to dictate who they are and to dictate what they do. Like, for example, I'm going to use myself for an example here, okay? I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have been since 8 years old. And also, I have ADHD. I was diagnosed since I was 8 years old, or when I was a child, okay? 4 times. Yes, I am a true ADHD neurodivergent. But that doesn't mean, because I may act oddly, impulsively, in a certain way, that doesn't excuse my behavior. I have to learn to set a boundary with my own behavior and what I say. It's called putting the filter on. And if I'm having a hard time getting my thoughts out, I have to work on that. I have to set a limit with myself of trying to do better with it. And yes, other people will have to be patient with me, but I am also putting in the effort. I have told myself and given myself a limit to, I want to do better with this. I have to learn the world around me. It's a struggle, yes, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't mean it can't be done. I may not be as articulate with my words as someone who is normal or neurotypical, okay? Those are the words that have been used today, where it used to be abstract thinking, okay? It used to be other words, okay? Neurodivergent is a word that's used, and I think it's very descriptive that people with ADHD have a very active imagination and very good strengths, okay? And sometimes maybe hearing them out, there might be an actual stroke of genius, but that's where we go, hey, can I say something that's a bit off the wall here, but hear me out and be patient with me? That is a respect of other people's boundaries. That is holding respect to others, because people with ADHD, we will say something that's outlandishly silly, funny, or ridiculously offensive to others. So we have to keep in mind what we may say and how. So maybe wording it a different way to still get the idea across. Because my dysfunction is my responsibility. Same thing with my diabetes. I control it. Depending on what I eat, how much of it I eat is on me. So I have to set a limit with myself on how much and when and what and how. I just said that how, but I have to say to myself, if I want my blood sugars to be right, this is what I need to do. If I want to be bad that day and eat a sundae, I have allowed myself to do it. And I reap the consequences of that. No one else is to blame but me. Okay. There's something I heard one day by this one person that changed his perspective, changed his thought. He said, everything is my fault. What he's saying is hold yourself accountable, hold yourself responsible, okay, to what you've done and what you're not doing, what you're failing to do, okay? Boundaries. Being honest with yourself, being truthful with yourself. One thing that I had been a problem with is that this person I've started talking to, we agreed to have a phone conversation after this person was watching some kids to give a call at a certain time. Okay. And I gave a call at a certain time. And the person didn't pick up. So I sent a message saying, hey, pick up the phone. I just called. The person said, well, I fell asleep. Okay. A problem I've had and just going along with it is I had said, if that's going to happen, just let me know. Well, I fell asleep. That's an excuse. Just let me know so you're not leaving me hanging. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. How would you feel if I did that to you when we had agreed to something? That is me stating, hey, if you're not going to be able to make it or be able to do it, at least you've given me a heads up. That set a boundary and an expectation. Communicate with me. That didn't infringe on anybody. That just saved some trouble. That's an expectation. And as I said, expectations are boundaries. And boundaries are expectations. Now, I know I've covered a lot, and I know I've dumped a lot, unpacked a lot here, but I wanted this to help clarify it more, okay? Because the way things are today, people are taking advantage of these actual healthy boundaries, these healthy actions, these healthy thoughts. Okay. They're manipulating, they're distorting them, they're bastardizing them. It's being manipulated. Don't be one of those people. Do this the right way. Do this the correct way. Okay? Sure, things are uncomfortable. Life is uncomfortable. It's the way it is. Okay? But you have a choice. Saying, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, I will not allow is uncomfortable. But if you are respected and you give that respect, life becomes more comfortable. adapt to the situation. Life becomes easier. Okay. Now, after I had said this to that person, yes, it was awkward for me. And I am not good at that. But however, yes, that person may have been in a bad mood after, but I stated what I needed to for me for a good reason. It may help reduce conflict later because I can bring it back up. I can hold that person to it. Responsibility and accountability. Okay. I know that's used a lot nowadays. Okay. But it's said a lot because it's needed. Okay. Boundaries goes with it. And I know before this is all said and done and over with, we may be beating a dead horse. But the more people that actually do it in the right way will change society. It will change communities. It will change the way we address each other. It will change our thoughts, our actions, the way we perceive, the way our perspectives are as well. Now, I'm glad I got back to coming back to this stuff because though all these other conversations I've had, all these other topics I've had are great, I think it's awesome to have that open perspective, have those open conversations, different aspects, philosophies, takes on things, views. However, I needed to come back to this. I needed to come back to principles, to foundations, to helping one build better character. And it's good that one does leave home base for a while. Okay. But one also has to come home. One has to come back home to themselves. One has to pursue and continue their passions. One has to constantly stay with what they believe in, their own foundations, their own fundamentals, things that help make them who they are, their character. I'm going to come back to this another day and go into other segments from this. But taking the break helped me free up a bit, help me reevaluate, help me rest. Because teaching and doing this does wear on a person, it tires them out. So you got to take time away. All right. And I had some things from after I moved and some issues where I live that needed addressing. It was time. I enjoyed getting my chainsaw back out, cutting some things away from some overgrowth that this old house that I'm renting needed to have done. So I'm also setting a boundary on how I want the place to look, how I want the place to look for myself and feel better about it. I mean, it's an old 1941 house. A lot of things get missed when a place is vacant for a little while. Things get neglected. So I'm setting a boundary with myself. And it's a reflection of oneself. So I want to leave something else with each of you. And I know I've left a lot with you already, but bear with me, humor me. Is take the time to not point fingers. Because as they say, every finger you point, there's 3 pointing back. Okay? Don't point the finger. Don't find fault with everybody else. Okay? There's an old saying, you look for a problem, you'll find it. Don't point out the problems always. Point out the solution and act that solution. Take part in it. Be a part of it. And do whatever it takes to do so. If it makes people mad, but it's a good solution and people get hurt, but it's for the right reasons, so be it. If it means the better, let it be for the better. Anyway, everybody have a good time, good life. Love yourself, love one another. Get freaky, have fun. Be weird if necessary. Talk to y'all later. Cal Griffin out.